is the intimacy coordinator.
Going to sue Blake Lively too?
Into oblivion, Megan.
Reynolds, how's it going?
Great. Why, what have you heard?
Guilty on all charges, Your Honor.
If you think Hollywood is just about glitzy premieres and polished red carpets, you're in for a shock. Behind all the glamour, an unexpected legal battle has been brewing. A battle that's left fans torn, friendships destroyed, and reputations hanging by a thread. Today we're diving into the tangled connections between actor-director Justin Baldoni, iconic power couple Reynolds and Blake Lively, and how one fateful meeting at a salsa dance might have lit the spark that ignited Hollywood's most puzzling lawsuit in years. Buckle up, because there's far more to this story than anyone's letting on.
She and I met real quickly. Justin Baldoni's met her first at a club. She was dancing, salsa dancing, professional dancer.
Long before he found himself at the center of swirling rumors and legal headaches, Justin Baldoni was just another guy captivated by a mesmerizing salsa dancer. According to those present, he first saw her at a lively club, gliding across the dance floor with a kind of fluid grace only a seasoned pro could possess. From the moment she spun into a twirl and flashed him a friendly smile, he was hooked. But before you jump to assumptions, this wasn't the usual "hey, can I buy you a drink?" scenario. Instead of leaning into cliched pickup lines, Justin took a more intriguing route. He invited her to join a small group of like-minded folks who'd been meeting to discuss higher concepts. Think spirituality, personal growth, and how to best serve humanity. For anyone used to hearing "what's your number?" this was an entirely different invitation. That alone piqued her curiosity. Who was this man who seemed more interested in talking about life's biggest questions than landing a date? As fate would have it, she started coming around to these gatherings, and that's where she encountered the rest of Justin's circle, including the friend who would eventually become his wife. The story takes a playful turn here. Justin likes to say she hit on him, corners him into asking her out, but the entire group swears that's not what really happened. He'll laugh it off, insisting he's only teasing, but it creates a fun, lighthearted banter that feels oddly quaint in an industry known for drama and egos. Before long, the two found themselves eye-gazing in a simple exercise meant to foster emotional connection. Staring into each other's eyes for an unbroken length of time can unravel all sorts of feelings. She claims she literally saw him fall in love in that moment. He was equally amazed, or so he says. Whether or not sparks were truly flying that night, it was obvious something deeper was happening, perhaps the first sign that Justin wasn't your average Hollywood guy. But here's the kicker. As surreal as these spiritual gatherings and would-be romances might sound, this was just the calm before a much wilder storm. One that would eventually draw in an A-list couple, allegations of a smear campaign, and a lawsuit so convoluted you need a roadmap to follow it. If this story is already grabbing your attention, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Your input keeps the conversation alive, and there's so much more to uncover. If Justin's love story seems endearingly offbeat, the lawsuit that followed was anything but sweet. Suddenly, Reynolds and Blake Lively, one of Hollywood's most beloved pairs, were tangled in a legal dispute with Baldoni. On the surface, it sounded bizarre. Weren't they all on track to collaborate on something amazing? Weren't they once enthusiastic about working together? The allegations, if you believe the gossip swirling around Tinseltown, suggest that Ryan and Blake tried to push their own agenda behind the scenes of a film. Many suspect that their production goals were less about artistry and more about seizing control, power, box office dominance, you name it. There's also talk of defamation, a fancy word for publicly trashing someone's reputation in a way that causes real damage. If rumors are to be trusted, a handful of very personal phone calls, text messages, and whispered comments were all it took to light the fuse. Some call it standard Hollywood friction, the kind that arises when big names clash. Others say it runs deeper. The tension apparently escalated when certain remarks were allegedly passed along to the media, describing Baldoni in less than flattering terms, words like predator swirling around without concrete context. The question is, who was behind it? According to Justin, the blame points squarely at Ryan and his associates. According to Ryan and Blake, none of this is fair. In one breath, people describe the couple as cornered, panicking over how to spin the story. In the next, it's Baldoni who's labeled as overreacting, determined to scorch the earth in retaliation. Either way, the stakes are high and neither side seems ready to back down. Meanwhile, fans of all three individuals are left scratching their heads, wondering how in the world we got from a romantic salsa dance origin story to a bitter legal war. The nastiness lurking beneath these high-profile suits was about to explode even further, especially once accusations of a smear campaign hit the headlines. Strap in, because the deeper we go, the murkier it gets. Hollywood thrives on rumors, but this fiasco took them to the next level. According to inside sources, an elaborate smear campaign was unleashed, one allegedly designed to wreck reputations and sabotage professional alliances. The timeline varies depending on who tells the story, but the gist is the same. Personal discussions and private phone calls turned into he said, she said showdowns. Allies were told conflicting tales. A-listers stopped returning calls. And somewhere in the chaos, lines between truth and spin got hopelessly blurred. For Ryan and Blake, Critics argue that they tried to frame Justin Baldoni as the aggressor, painting him as someone unscrupulous who'd do anything to get his way. But in Justin's circle, word traveled fast that Ryan, with Blake's quiet support, had labeled him with heavy terms that could ruin a career if believed. That's where the lawsuit steps in, claiming those allegations were baseless and intended solely to force powerful agencies and studios to distance themselves from Baldoni. One of the juiciest allegations? Ryan might have called or emailed top-level executives, urging them to keep an eye on Justin. Some claim it was about protecting people from a so-called predator. Others say it was a strategic move to isolate him. Whichever side you take, the result was the same. People believe there was real smoke, and where there's smoke, folks in Hollywood often assume there's a raging fire. Yet as the drama escalated, it wasn't just about pointing fingers. Allegations of contract violations, hush-hush private investigations, and pages of legal documents soon made it impossible to ignore the fiasco. All of this begs the question: was this meltdown an unplanned chain reaction, or a carefully orchestrated attempt to bury a rival? And just when you think the pot couldn't get stirred anymore, enter an entirely different controversy. One that took place on a movie set and brought in new voices eager to call out the alleged hypocrisy of all involved. By now you might be wondering, why would a bright, bankable couple like Ryan and Blake bother risking their reputations to dethrone Justin Baldoni? One theory floats around the idea of competition big time. Some fans whisper that Blake felt overshadowed by the success of actresses like Margot Robbie or Scarlett Johansson, fueling a hunger for a cinematic claim to fame that could outshine them all. With Margot Robbie snagging enormous success like Barbie, and Scarlett Johansson pioneering her own directorial projects, the speculation is that Blake was determined to stake her territory in a massive blockbuster or two, showing the industry that she was every bit the powerhouse star. Then there's Ryan Reynolds, riding high after major hits like Deadpool. He's known for witty social media comebacks and blockbuster after blockbuster. Could it be that he wanted to maintain a squeaky clean image while orchestrating Hollywood deals that might bring in even bigger paychecks? Rumors also point to a so-called rivalry with Taylor Swift. Swift and Blake Lively were once famously close, but as the lawsuit drama loomed larger, there were suggestions that Taylor distanced herself to avoid the negative PR. Meanwhile, some say Blake tried to recourt Swift's loyalty, wanting to preserve an image of unbreakable bonds during tough times. Naturally, the tabloids gobbled this up. Friendship feuds, lost alliances, potential grudges. Even if only half of it is true, it's enough to make fans wonder which headlines to believe. But the real question remains: are these personal vendettas the engine behind the lawsuit? Or are we dealing with an unfortunate swirl of paranoid assumptions and conflicting agendas? It's possible the couple aimed to be Hollywood's next power duo, only to slam headfirst into Justin Baldoni's unexpectedly strong pushback. Yet all these swirling rumors would pale in comparison to a different spark that lit up the internet: the behind-the-scenes birth scene controversy, featuring Adam Manson and accusations so intense that even the toughest hearts might cringe. Anyone who's tried to keep track of these shifting alliances might feel like they're lost in a Hollywood labyrinth. But the introduction of Adam Manson's name stirred up a brand new tempest. It Ends With Us was rumored to have included a scene where Manson, an actor and friend of Justin Baldoni, had a role requiring close physical contact with Blake Lively. A birth scene that required his face to be, well, right where a doctor's face might be during delivery. Blake Lively later insisted she was deeply uncomfortable with this setup, especially upon learning Adam was Justin's best friend. She portrayed it as an awkward power dynamic. Was this some scheme to humiliate her? Why, out of all the actors in the world, did Justin pick his pal for that role? Adam countered, claiming everything was normal and professional on set, and that Blake's discomfort was news to him. A swirl of finger-pointing ensued. Who was telling the truth? Before anyone could calm the waters, tabloids feasted on the story. To some, it looked like an obvious attempt by Blake to keep piling negative press onto Baldoni's doorstep, painting him as an inconsiderate director who put her in these awkward positions. Others reasoned that she did have a right to speak up if she felt objectified or singled out. Meanwhile, the public couldn't decide whether this was a genuine concern or a manipulative spin to support an ongoing lawsuit. The more Blake doubled down, the more Adam Manson dug in. He insisted there was zero wrongdoing. He even produced receipts showing he'd been vetted and had legitimate acting credentials, not just a friendly tie to Justin. The conflict escalated further, stoking the narrative that the entire production was overshadowed by tension, drama, and an unending appetite for blame. Yet as sensational as those on-set drama stories were, they paled next to the real question. Where do these Hollywood power players stand now? And how deep do the regrets and lost alliances go? It's no secret that once a legal scandal erupts in Hollywood, the fallout can be brutal and unstoppable. By this point, paparazzi were snapping photos of Ryan and Blake just about anywhere they went. Horse riding events, coffee runs, even quick getaways with family. Rumor had it that the couple longed for their old life, free from ongoing legal trouble and relentless headlines. And the rumor mill insisted that Blake, in particular, regretted launching a lawsuit that might have done more to highlight her behind-the-scenes quarrels than protect her image. People close to the production noted that big-time studios and potential collaborators started second-guessing their involvement with anyone tied up in this fiasco. A-listers who had once graciously promoted each other's projects went silent. Those who had stood by Blake's side during smaller PR scuffles were suspiciously absent when her name kept popping up in negative press. As for Justin Baldoni, he didn't get out unscathed either. Some insiders whispered that agencies were wary of working with someone who could so easily be portrayed as a loose cannon or predator, even if those allegations were unproven. But ironically, the lawsuit might have rallied other supporters who believed that Ryan and Blake had gone too far, and they now see Baldoni as a symbol of pushing back against Hollywood bullies. Whether that loyal coalition is big enough to help him weather the storm remains to be seen. Meanwhile, fans of all three are torn between frustration and exhaustion. One camp sides with Justin, claiming he's the victim of a smear tactic orchestrated by a power couple determined to secure box office glory at any cost. Another camp argues that Ryan and Blake are simply trying to protect themselves from a cunning director who's using the courts to inflate his own significance. The only thing everyone can agree on? Nobody seems happy with how far it's gone. But if you think we're anywhere near a tidy ending, guess again. In Hollywood, the story often continues long after the cameras stop rolling, and we still haven't touched on the biggest lingering questions about what comes next. The courts haven't dismissed the lawsuit, and as more documents leak, it's clear the entire affair could drag on for ages. Legal experts speculate that Ryan and Blake's team might try to settle quietly, even if it's just to halt the flood of bad press. Others believe that Justin Baldoni, having come this far, won't fold so easily. After all, if he's genuinely determined to clear his name, money alone might not mend the damage done to his reputation. Sometimes a public trial, where each side must produce undeniable proof, remains the only path to vindication. But what of the intangible damages? Hollywood runs on connections, brand endorsements, and intangible star power. If studios fear that Blake Lively's involvement in a project could result in behind-the-scenes turmoil, it might curb her casting opportunities. If executives believe Justin Baldoni can't be trusted not to spark controversies, they might avoid hiring him, no matter how visionary he might be. Ryan Reynolds, known for comedic genius and a seemingly ironclad public image, might skate by unscathed, or he could find himself under scrutiny for leading smear efforts, depending on the final verdict in court. Some PR insiders also point out that the absolute worst thing to do during a PR crisis is to launch a high-profile lawsuit. When personal behavior is called into question, any skeleton in your closet tends to get rattled loose. This entire disaster might serve as a cautionary tale for the next generation of stars, how one ill-advised legal war can unravel careers, friendships, and squeaky-clean public personas. So, will they choose peace or keep rolling the dice until the damage is irreversible? Let's wrap up our deep dive with a final reflection that might leave us all with more questions than answers. Looking back, it's strangely poetic how the story began with an innocent meeting on a salsa dance floor, blossoming into philosophical talks on how to make the world a better place. From that point on, Justin Baldoni's life was anything but predictable, catching the eye of major studios, crossing paths with a blockbuster couple, and finding himself in the crosshairs of lawsuits and media scrutiny. This swirling saga reminds us that in a world fueled by star power and whispers of scandal, good intentions can quickly morph into unstoppable hurricanes of rumor and ambition. Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, once the epitome of a charming, lighthearted Hollywood duo, might now be questioning what they've sacrificed for the sake of public image, cinematic glory, and attempts to control a narrative that grew too big too fast. When all is said and done, each party might walk away with regrets. Perhaps they'll regret the moment they decided to push for a lawsuit instead of negotiation. Maybe they'll regret that first phone call warning an executive to steer clear of a so-called predator. Or possibly, they'll rue the day that personal differences turned into professional warfare, sending loyal fans into confusion. But regrets alone won't rewind the clock. These legal proceedings will keep forging ahead, slinging new revelations into the public eye. Allies will shift, new controversies will spark, and the final outcome might not arrive for months or years. For Hollywood, this is business as usual. For everyone watching on the sidelines, it's a free, if nerve-wracking spectacle in how the drive for fame, respect, and vindication can tear even the brightest reputations to shreds. So what's the moral here? Maybe it's that genuine connections, like those gleaned from real conversations and meaningful eye contact, should never be overshadowed by the hunger for influence. Or perhaps it's that in a digital age, secrets don't stay secret for long, and launching lawsuits can crack open more controversies than they solve. In a realm where illusions are currency, authenticity is scarce, and one misstep can unleash a never-ending storm. If this saga intrigues you, hit the like button, subscribe for future updates, and drop a comment below. Whose side are you on, and what do you think really happened behind the scenes? Your insights might just spark the next chapter in this ongoing Hollywood whirlwind.